Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beeflo. This show is being sponsored by our friends Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Walls, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selections of pizzas and pastas, as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday nights only special. One medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order after 3 p.m. You get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. Toppings can be added, but at their normal prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all your carryout or delivery needs, or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. The 108ers and our good friends from SoxMachine are hosting a live show, our annual opening day eve show, Wednesday, March 26th at the Ramova Theater Loft, 3520 South Halstead in Bridgeport. Doors open at 6 p.m. with panels starting promptly at 7:30. Tickets are $20. They're online. Go to 108.ing/EVE. That's 108.ing/EVE to buy tickets. This show is also powered by you, the loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid and how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest. I'm going to get my... Ooh. He's the host of the Future Sox podcast, which streams weekly on Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Central Time. Actually, a little bit ahead of this one. He is also the author of more video cuts of White Sox minor leaguers than anyone else on Elon's favorite app, which didn't work well today, actually. It might be the 108 attorney's fault. And lastly, he's a music aficionado, longtime friend of the 108ers, Ian Eskridge. Welcome back to the Au Jus, my friend.
Thanks, Beef. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was wondering if Elon was trying to, put the brakes on you guys and hold you down today. Because
it looked like it, didn't it?
Just wouldn't refresh at all. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? Then I'm wondering if I'm going to get the invite because I don't have your phone number. So I was like, oh, what's going on here? And then I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it anyway because I had like my first cavity in like 8-9 years today.
Oh, shit.
I got it taken care of. And the dentist decided to put 2 full syringes of Novocaine in my face, so I couldn't feel my face for like 4 hours.
Oh, my God.
So here I am. It feels better. I'm good. Let's roll.
I love it. And just to note, this is live on YouTube, but I was looking and it doesn't look like it actually went live on Twitter. So the Twitter issues have sustained. So the live stream is not kicking off on Twitter. It is appear to be working on Facebook and also on the, as you guys call it, the Purple app. It is also up on the Purple app. Not that we have like no followers on the Purple app, but if someone were to stumble upon it, it would be there right now.
Yeah, the discoverability on Twitch is like the worst thing ever, but the chat on it is awesome. And if you subscribe to to somebody that's got a affiliated account, you get cool emotes that you can use on your phone when you're chatting with your friends. You can send, like, we've got I've got Hawk Harrelson, I've got Jerry Reinsdorf, I got Chris Getz's head, and then I've got let's see, Colson, Noah, and Edgar Caro heads as well that you can use in your chat. It's fun. It's stupid, but it's fun. So
that's great. It adds to the show when you have that sort of thing. I wanted to have you on because we did this last year. We did in September after the Future Sox released the top 30 midseason prospects. And I thought, maybe I should make a list and show who everyone is and listen. Fuck that. I'm not putting a list. Here's what people can do. They can go to the link in the show notes and read the entire article. What Ian and I are going to talk about is some specific questions I have about the list. I love seeing the list come out. Nobody is closer to these prospects than you guys are. And so when I see what you guys push out, it often leads to questions to help me understand how these types of lists get put together. And I think for me, it's more of a learning tool, these discussions that we have, than anything else. I know I don't know as much, but this is how I'll learn. This is how I figure it out. So I've got questions for you, Ian. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be, I suppose. Like these questions that you send me, I'm always like, I look at them and I'm just like, come on, man.
Question number 1. And in the Future Sox list, the number 2 prospect in the White Sox system is now Kyle Teel. So you got Kyle Teel, Overhagen Smith. Explain the methodology of having the catcher guy above the hard-throwing left-handed pitcher that the White Sox seem to kind of develop well.
Well, if you look, so coming out here shortly, there's going to be, James and I were talking about it last night. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to take, like, I don't know, the top 5 or whatever, and everybody's going to go through and write a blurb about why they put who they put where they put them. But what I will tell you is that Kyle Teal was number 2 in 3 out of the 6 lists. Now, Hagen Smith, on the other hand, Elijah and I were lockstep with putting Hagen Smith at number 2. And spoiler alert, both Elijah and myself, we both had the same top 10, just flip 9 and 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is
crazy.
Like totally bizarre, but that's how that worked out. As far as why, I mentioned last night on our stream that I'm a big Edgar Caro guy, and I ranked him above Kyle Teal, as did Elijah.
Okay.
And just the power, which Kyle Teal just had his 2nd or 3rd home run in spring training just a few minutes ago. But Edgar Caro's power and the switch hit and all that stuff, like, I personally just think he has a little bit higher upside as opposed to Kyle Teal has a higher floor. Now, versus Hagen Smith, like, me personally, like, I look at it and I go, I think Hagen Smith's got a higher floor and a higher ceiling than Kyle Teal. Okay. So that's why I put him at number 2. He showed up at number 2 in the overall rankings just because you had 3 guys. Like, if not Cease, who last I looked was winning his match in the 108 tourney.
He's doing pretty well.
Yeah. Well, I got a bone to pick with you about that, putting 2 Future Sox guys in the same stinking bracket, making sure that only one can get through. That was devious. But had Dylan put Hagen Smith at 2, we would have had a tie.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, all right.
I don't know what we would have done then. That would have been kind of weird. We'd have had to have some sort of tiebreaker, and I'm sure James would have made the executive decision to put Kyle Teal there.
Because that's who he chose.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think that's probably like where I'm at as far as that goes. I don't have, it's like people say, oh, I can't believe you put this guy above this guy. And, like I get, like every once in a while, parents saying, why isn't my guy here?
My kid up there, yeah.
I mean, it's like there's no, ill will or malice here. It's just like kind of how I, just after watching him for a while, this is kind of how I feel. And, with Kyle Teal being in the Red Sox system, I was only able to see him sometimes. I did watch him in a couple of games other than against White Sox prospects. And, I just, I guess I could have cut him some slack because when he played the White Sox affiliates, I felt like he was getting kind of manhandled by the pitching.
Okay.
But then again, it's the White Sox pitching, which is pretty stinking good.
Right.
He's getting, weak ground balls against Mason Adams. Who doesn't?
Who knew? Yeah, exactly. So, it kind of happens in that spot.
Yeah. So that's my feeling on that.
So in general, you were higher on Hagen Smith. So you're kind of like almost agreeing with my point that I would have thought Hagen Smith would be a little higher. But the group kind of thinks that the floor of this guy's probably an everyday catcher like today is enough to like buoy him kind of above the, because Hagen Smith's got to have some reliever risk in there, and an everyday backstop, even one that can even like moderately do anything with the bat is substantial in today's MLB. Like if you go down the list of like what's the hitting look like for the guys who caught a lot of games, like there's like 5 good hitters and that's it. Like once you get past that group, you're above league average, and it's like, oh, that's a valuable player.
100%.
Speaking of,
I see Dylan's hopping in the chat there saying, I agree. How could you do that? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, this is not the forum, but I go long form on thesis on the 108 tourney. I've been doing it for a lot of years, and I have things, they bubble up in my head and figure out, but I just felt that was a nice matchup because the guy you guys are going against has been talking a lot of smack about Prospect Guru. So I thought I'd put you guys into one pile and see what happens. See who pops out of there, baby.
I knew that's how that happened. I didn't mention it beforehand, but I kind of had the thought that's how that took form. Just a thought.
Absolutely. Now, let's move on to your guy, Mason Adams. I know you're a big Mason Adams fan. I found this interesting. It's not really a gripe necessarily. I found it interesting in the list in that Mason Adams lands at number 9 and George Wolko lands at number 10. And I'm looking at them like, does Mason Adams have like the highest floor? And then George Wolko might have the lowest, but maybe the highest upside of the entire list. I mean, just looking at them like right next to each other was hilarious. Mason Adams up at 9. Tell me about him, Ian.
Yeah. So actually, if you look at the rankings, Jasper Ruse, who's over in Europe, him, Dylan, and Elijah all had Mason Adams at 9 and Wolko at 10, and I had the opposite of that.
Okay.
Now, you know how much I love Mason Adams.
Yes.
But my thought was with George. Now, I think part of the issue for me with George is that he needs to get out of his own way in what he's trying to accomplish. Because to me, when I watch his at bats, I feel like there's it tends to get pretty pull happy, regardless of whether that's what he's trying to do. That's what the end result ends up being. And there's some rollovers there and stuff. I feel like if he would go opposite field a bit more, I feel like his whole game would open up. And as of right now, like last year when he started having that hot streak, you saw him going to left center field a lot and to center field a lot. And then when he started K'ing a lot, you see he's out front of everything almost. Okay. So yeah. I love his game, and the dude is a monster. He just needs to, continue working on the approach, and I'm sure that Fuller's going to help him with that. Now, as far as Mason Adams goes, I think ultimately he just needs an opportunity, and right now that's pretty scarce, especially with Shane Smith going out there and throwing almost 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had made a point to Treasy a couple of weeks ago that I wondered if Kai Bush was lucking out in a way, because I don't know how many of the opportunities are going to be. And some of these starting pitchers, the lane might be chosen on them by the time you get to the start of 2026. And there might actually be a little more mobility in here, because you're right, it seems pretty tight. And you watch Mason Adams, it's look good in spring training. Why couldn't he be but they have a ton of starting pitchers that are looking good right now in spring training. It's nice as a White Sox fan to look at that and say, like, I saw someone put up a poll on Twitter the other day. I think it was maybe Jacqueline Hilligas. She put, when do you expect the White Sox to be competitive? And I smashed the 2026 button because I thought this pitching staff might actually be good next year. And then all you got to do is kind of backfit a non-terrible offense. And there you go. You're right up in there. So,
yeah, I saw you mention the other day that you thought that the pitching staff was being a little slept on. And that's kind of how I felt since people started talking about them before. Like in the winter, early in the winter, they were saying, oh, this team's probably going to win, lose more games than they lost this year. And I was like, I don't think so. I mean, you lost Garrett Crochet, but, the stuff that's coming up in the pipeline is pretty stinking competitive, and right. I think that if they get rid of, some of the bullpen guys that they had last year, the White Sox don't finish with that record.
Yes, agreed.
Ultimately,
agreed.
So,
yeah, that would have been a great spot to like gut that bullpen earlier, because you saw what happened with the guys they filled in with. Those guys were pretty decent. They were just fine, and these were guys they just grabbed up kind of out of places. So yeah, it hurt them a lot. Doubling back to Wolko for a second, you mentioned him taking more of an approach of going the other way. Is it wrong to categorize him as someone who is like 80 grade power, like power level of like someone like Adam Dunn, where going the other way is no problem? They can get out of the ballpark just as easily the other way, and they don't have to worry so much about because the pulling and lifting thing is for normal humans, not someone who has gigantic power, right? I mean, so the approach he would, maybe it minimize the power some, but I would assume he still gets to the left field bleachers plenty.
Yeah, he can still do it. Me and Jeff Cohen were in Kannapolis watching batting practice, and he hit one out opposite field in batting practice. He's definitely capable of doing it. He did it last year a couple of times during the year. But like those ones that you see that go like 450 feet, 475 feet, those ones are to right center and right field, but he still has the power to hit it out. He's got great bat speed and just a lot of power behind that swing.
Now, quick question on him. He's got the enormous K rate, 40+%. And I read in the Just Missed, you guys talked about Javier Magallon, who is at the lower levels. It's a small guy too, but with a bunch of punch, and how the K rate's untenable, 43% last year. I know the levels aren't the same because Magallon was in Arizona and Wilco was in A-ball, but how come it doesn't apply so strongly to George, the substantial K rate?
Yeah, that's when I saw that question, I was like, that is a good question. In theory, I just think that the power upside of Wilco. I mean, Mogollon's got a bunch of power as well, but most of his is pull side.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel that he can go to any field and rip 120-mile-an-hour line drive.
Right.
I could be wrong, and I would love to be wrong, but I haven't been able to watch him yet. And I don't know if off the rip we're going to be able to watch him either, because I don't know that he's going to make it to Kannapolis on initial assignment. He might have to work through it like Wilco did last year. So
makes sense.
I guess we'll have to see. I would love to be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen not even a second of him, but I've heard a lot of people with excitement talk about him and the pop that comes off the bat. But yeah, 40% K rate is can be devastating. Needs to be worked out of, basically.
Yeah, that's a little rough for sure.
Now, moving on, my favorite question last year to ask you in the midseason one was, where's Sean Burke? Why is Sean Burke not on the list? This year he is on the list. He slots in at number 13. My question to you, though, is he slots in well behind Jairo Iriarte at number 8. And to me, just eyeballing them, not a sophisticated view, they look like similarly profiled from the wrist standpoint, in that the stuff, shoots off the camera. You watch the guy, and you're like, oh my God, that guy has some shit going on here, but maybe they can't find the strike zone. So how does Iriarte end up so far ahead of Sean Burke in this situation, given that maybe the wrist pro, they're maybe not exactly the same, but they look similar, but Burke actually did perform in the majors already with that. How does that end up happening?
Well, I mean, yeah, we saw him for a couple of games last year.
Yeah, it was just 1 month, so I think it was 4 outings or something, 5 outings. Something
yeah,
like
in Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean,
in Chicago,
like 3 starts in Charlotte or something, and in the first game that he came back, I think he struck out 8, like the first 8 batters he saw. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think just like the issue that comes up is that I've also seen him walk 8 guys in a game.
Yeah.
And that's with mound visits and everything. It's not like he's just being out there left to die. He just sometimes that command just disappears. Mm-hmm. And I will say that since he's been in the majors, that we haven't seen that as much. I think that's the thing, is that I haven't seen him disappear for that long. Iriarte, I haven't seen him disappear for that long.
Yep.
I don't know how. Trying to think. Iriarte, I think he's younger than Burke. I think.
That would make sense, because Burke was a college.
Yeah, I think he's like 2 years younger than Burke, and I think that's probably the thought for me. Is that he's younger. The upside looks to be as good. At least I'm hoping so. But as we saw the other day in spring training, he had a rough outing, and they're both capable of doing that. So
right.
To me, it's just the a little bit younger slider. Good velocity. Same thing. I think that just the Burke health problems and disappearing for like a year and a half was kind of like the thing here, is that, I was the only person to put him on the list last year at all.
Yeah.
And this year, I was the conservative one out of everybody, I think. And I was tied with a couple other guys who put him at 14, and there was a couple that had him a couple slots above that. So
And you are correct. Iriarte is 23, Burke's 25. So there is an age difference there, a couple of years of maturity potentially. So interesting. Yeah, I was curious how much of rankings like that in the middle, especially, are anchoring. Meaning you had a guy ranked some spot and you don't want to move him so far because you're like, well, the performance doesn't really dictate a move that far. Or we got some new guys in here, so you move him back a few spots, but you're like, he shouldn't go that much further. He's still been decent because Iriarte was fine in the minors last year. It's not like he had a bad year or something like that. That he should get moved down because of it. So I was curious how much of that is like, I'm looking at a little snippet of Sean Burke was good in Chicago, but the broader picture does not necessarily dictate that. So.
Yeah, like doing lists like this, it's tough. I mean, like that's the thing that that a lot of people don't think about is they're like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He put this guy at this number. I mean, if you go and look at Jim Callis's list, one of the prospect gurus on MLB Pipeline, you look at some of his rankings and you're like, well, this guy died. Like never made it past AA. Why was he at number 3 on this team's list?
Right.
It happens, like it's like we were saying about the Bez thing the other, with those tweets the other day about Andrew Vaughn. Literally everybody in the prospect world said he was the top major league ready bat in the draft. The White Sox draft him, so everybody's high on this guy. So why wouldn't a prospect guy be high on him? It makes absolutely no sense why you would call him out on and say, how stupid is this guy for thinking this? I mean, like, come on.
That's a consensus thought, right?
Last night, though.
Maybe not. That might not have been a right down the middle opinion on that one for sure.
That one was, like I and the best part about that is that James has fun about it. And he doesn't mind that I go back and mine these things out, So I'm going to keep on doing it because it makes me laugh. So
I respect him very much for never deleting those tweets and then taking them with a good, with a grain of salt, with a sense of humor. It's impressive to watch that. Then you mentioned it's hard ranking, guys. And when I saw this player's ranking, I thought to myself, this is a tough one to rank because I don't know where I would rank this guy if I had to, even though I'm a fan. I like the guy. And that's Brian Ramos. And Brian Ramos was ranked number 14 on the list. And to me, he's the most interesting prospect here, and maybe a bellwether for me personally with how this turns out, because he's right on the cusp of the majors. He played a little bit last year and showed some flashes here in Chicago. But he wasn't that great in the totality of the work. He struggled a little bit in the minors, although he had a nice come up at AA kind of before the struggles at AAA. And he's one of these guys where I look at him, I'm like, he might be an above average regular, or he might be absolutely fucking nothing. So, Ian, how hard is it to like rank a Brian Ramos here? And is this the type of guy where if this guy makes it, that's the type of thing that pushes teams, you're a contending team because you got a guy from the middle to come up and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the huge things, is like if everybody's like number 1 in the system generally comes up and is at least more or less an MLB regular and might be, like a pretty good one. But if you can get a guy that's ranked in the 10 to 20 range, or especially the 20 to 30 range, if you can get one of those guys to come up and pop and be a guy, then that's huge. The thing about Ramos, I think, is that I think we just need to see a consistency here. And we see, like when he went back down to Charlotte, like it took him a little while to get going. It takes a guy, 3-4 weeks to get going after getting demoted, after being brought up from, AA or whatever. And
right, they rushed him up basically.
There's that emotional rush when he's there, but then when he gets demoted, I have to imagine, like I haven't asked him about it, but I have to imagine that the emotional rush going back down after being called up there's probably got to be like some sort of a, like a mourning period, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
So the guy, he works super hard, works hard in the classroom. Aaron Santana, who's like, the White Sox mom who takes care of all these guys coming to assimilate into the United States. She loves the guy. Super nice dude. I'd love nothing more than to see him succeed. So, we'll see what what comes this year. And, he's had some really good at bats in spring training. I don't know if that's going to necessarily add up to anything, because with the way they've got the 26 man going right now, with all these guys who are like one step away from death, they have to cut all these guys first to get him up there. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, it's a great point, not directly about what we're talking about, but tangentially, because you're right. They have a lot of guys who are out of options, and they've got to figure out what those guys are. So this is one of them is your guy, Lenyn Sosa. I have a feeling they're gonna give Lenyn Sosa a roster spot and see what happens here. One of them is Miguel Vargas, who I don't think they're going to give up on after that trade so quickly. They've got to make decisions. They got to figure out. And I think that's probably Brian Ramos will be hurt a little bit by that, because he's going to have to wait a couple months at a minimum before they can kind of, or unless some injuries happen before he gets his chance again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like Brian Ramos has got to wait for a guy who hit 325 or whatever in the PCL, because he hasn't put up those numbers like Vargas did for the OKC Dodgers team. So, it's going to be one of those things that sometimes it's going to be a waiting game. I mean, like, I don't think that Jacob Amaya, moment of silence for him who left the game earlier today.
Oh no, did he?
Yeah.
Are their shortstops still standing? I mean, I guess we'll count Colson's played 2 days, so we'll count him as standing. It's like, do they have any shortstops still upright?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we'll see. I'm not sure who's going to end up there. This is kind of one of those things where, afterwards, maybe we kick that around a little bit and try and figure that out. But I mean, I just don't. Like Joey DeGaio, I'm pretty sure he's going to go.
I assume he's not going to be here. It's been rough for him.
I mean, and the thing, I'm listening to the A's broadcast today, and they're saying about Michael A. Taylor, who got hit by a pitch, and they're like, "Oh, you gotta take that really careful with him, because he's going to be such a big piece for the White Sox this year." Pardon?
He's got like 80% K rate in spring training.
Good Lord.
His bat may have a hole in it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So we'll see what the thing with Getz is, I don't know, when you got a guy like that you gave money to.
Yeah.
What do you like? Do you have to be willing to just eat that money, I would think, even if he's great defensively, and all his WAR from last year was all defensively.
It was all defense, correct? That's right.
How can you roster a guy that strikes out 80% of the time? You can't. There's no way. So I mean,
I looked at signing like him and also they'll play Austin Slater a little more, but I looked at it too as the bench has to have guys on there that you don't care if they collect dust for a week and a half and never play. So it's tough to put a lot of these young guys on that bench. You don't want them rotting away. Now, I think if they make the decision to keep Sosa, they'll find a bats for him against lefties anyway. So it won't matter. He'll force his way in the lineup in that spot. So he won't get too but Michael A. Taylor's good, because you don't have to play him for 2 weeks unless you really they need, not saying he's a good player. They could have put someone better in that spot, but they kind of need someone to fill out the bench.
Agreed.
All right, let's get to one more specific about the rankings, and we'll get a couple more questions in here. And I swear, I wrote this question before Shane Smith went out there and dominated the Dodgers. This was Ian can vouch. I had sent him these questions before that outing, but I asked, and this is my last one for the specific prospect rankings: how in the world do you guys have Jake Eater at 26? And Nick Nestriti at 25, who both had rough 2024 seasons. I wrote in the notes horrible. I don't know if they were exactly horrible. They made their ways to the majors. Ahead of Shane Smith at 29, who was good in 2024. Now, mind you, not good enough to stay with the Brewers. They said, okay, go ahead, young man. But how does this happen? How do we end up in this spot right here?
For the record, I would like to throw it out there that of the 6 people that ranked, me and Sleepy were the only 2 that had Shane Smith in our top 30.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
I had him at 20, and Sleepy had him at 24.
Nice. Okay. So not even at the back. You guys had him kind of a little more middle. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's I went through, as soon as we grabbed him in the Rule 5, like I shot out a video like almost right away because I was almost positive that that's exactly who we were going to pick. So I'd already had the video, like I was already cutting through stuff and getting stuff ready.
Yep.
I watched probably like 6 or 7 of his games from last season, and the guy's good. Now, did I know he had 99.6 in the tank? No. And I don't know, for the record, I do not know whether that's because it's playing up in short stints.
Right, because you're only throwing 2 innings. Yeah.
Right. He's just trying to shove just to make sure that he stays with the White Sox because that's where he sees opportunity as opposed to possibly the Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could possibly be a thing. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's look good.
Yeah, and as far as like I don't have Nastrini on mine at all.
Okay. Yeah.
I do have Eater, but he's at 28. So
okay.
Like I have Eater because I still believe in the stuff.
Yep.
Now, is he ever going to figure it out? I don't know. And as we were talking last night on the on our stream, probably should switch Eater and Schweitzer.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. You guys mentioned that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, like I like Schweitzer a lot, and I think that he's got some good stuff. Just like the exact same problem with Eater is that you have those escalating pitch counts, and it happens to Schweitzer a lot less than it happens to Eater. That's why I say I should probably just switch him because, like they're kind of similar pitchers in that aspect of, like stuff wise. I think they both have really good stuff. It's just, like every once in a while you've got the, inning where it kind of gets out of hand and, like they'll throw 25 pitches, 30 pitches in that inning. Right. And it's like if either one of them could figure that out, their stock's going to skyrocket. It's just they both need to like for both of those guys, that's kind of what they need to do to, kind of ascend here a little bit.
Yeah, give themselves a little bump kind of up the list. I mean, it is encouraging, Ian, to have those guys kind of at the back, the edge of this, like even the Tanner McDougalls of the world, like guys that still have some promise. And they're really at the back of or off the 30. And it's like, those guys are going to be, you got a shot to make these guys major league pitchers. It's like when people look at this farm system and say, oh, they got a high rank again. So what? It failed last time, fuck the White Sox. They didn't. It's shaped differently than it was shaped that time. That time when you were looking at it, once you got to 10, after that, you were like, who the fuck are these guys? And who is going to actually make it? This group, you look down the list, you're like, there's guys who got a shot all the way kind of into the bottom.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you saw the P-Knowles tweet that was in response to people giving that response to tweets about prospects that, oh, it doesn't matter, like, oh, this is what rebuild 3.2, like I'm so over that response because, like I put out all the videos. So like that tweet from P-Knowles, like it hit my soul. Like it felt so good for somebody else to say it. Because every time like I get that response, I just want to be like, dude, I've heard this like 800 times over the last year and a half. Like I don't need to hear that anymore. And like we get it, like we were wrong about some of the prospects that we thought were going to do well, as were the experts,
Yeah, correct.
So
yeah, the national experts. Hey, cautious optimism is totally fine. But let's ingest it, let's watch it, and let's kind of just see what happens here. Because I do, for me personally, it looks shaped differently. The approach looks different. Doesn't mean it'll work, but it does seem not the same thing to me. Ian, when you guys are going through this list, and you said 6 different people are picking, and we basically know the usual suspects in there that are picking. Which player in the list had the largest disparity between either one of you guys? Like the biggest spread between their highest and lowest rank?
Well, I mean, obviously, the Shane Smith thing is that he wasn't ranked by 4 guys, but
and then he's 20th on another one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the problem with that was that he was like put into the game so late. The guys already from the games last year kind of had their whole thing sorted out. And then they had to add all the guys from the Crochet deal in there as well. So like, that makes it even more difficult that you have to kind of like bump all these guys that you thought you had sorted out. So like I would say that that's probably like the biggest one there. I mean, like you've got like I had a couple of there's a couple of Peyton Paulettes on here,
Okay.
and he made it onto the just miss list,
Yep.
and like a couple of us had him on there, and Seth Keener was on a couple of lists, and he wasn't on a couple of others. It's just like there's I don't know. I like as far as like there wasn't like any guy that was on the list except for like hold on one second. There wasn't anybody that wasn't on anybody else's list really that was like it's like usually everybody's got like their one guy that they
Okay.
kind of throw on there.
Yep.
And like I'm less militant about these lists than most people are.
Okay.
Like Jasper and I both have Riku Nishida at 30.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
And it's just
fun player.
Yeah, he's fun and he's
Yeah.
interesting. Like there's some questions about defense, but the bat to ball is pretty good. Despite the at bat you saw him taking spring training here. Generally, it's pretty good. And he's awesome on the base pass. The defense though is the major question there. I think. Like I'd be fine with having somebody with the contact profile like a Chase Mydroth, same kind of thing, but
right.
Defensively, I feel that he's better than Riku is.
Yeah.
Like Nazis had Roni Hernandez at number 30. It's a catcher.
He's a catcher, right? Okay.
Yeah, he was a catcher in Kannapolis. The power didn't show up like everybody kind of hoped it would last year. It was always known that his profile, like less power, more bat to ball, and he hit pretty well. I think people were hoping that there was going to be a little bit more power than there was. So that's why I think he's only on that list. My bad. Sleepy's got him. That's what I should have known because he's Sleepy's guy. He's got him at number 23. So there is that. Like I just threw, there's an outfielder at the White Sox drafted last year, TJ McCants out of Alabama. Okay. And he was on the Ole Miss team with Elko and Gonzalez.
Jacob Gonzalez.
At one point. And I saw some really good things out of him last year. The numbers didn't really pop a whole lot. But I'm I think that there's something there, and I think people should know who he is. That's why I put him on there. So I'd say that that's probably like the things that are like, oh, okay, that's different.
I love it.
Those are those.
But there was nobody who had a guy top, everyone has a guy top 10 and then they had him 28th or nothing like that. There's no really big moves between that kind of group. And you think about it, I mean, who could be the most even volatile guys? I mean, like even in that case, their upsides kind of buoy them back up, even if you're like, oh, this guy's got a lot of risk of failure, but with the upsides, you don't end up doing that.
Yeah, I mean, like there's like Nestrini's up in the the mid 20s, but okay. I don't feel like he's pitched in the majors and he's just got this much eligibility left, so it's not,
right.
Like he's almost gone anyway. But like I don't feel like being mid 20s is really like all that polarizing, Like no. I think that if there was somebody in the top, if somebody put somebody crazy in the top 10, I'd be like, oh yeah. That's the one, but like there really isn't that from all six of our guys. I mean, maybe we need to get somebody that doesn't know anything about it at all and just throws darts.
Throw some wild cards in there. Pick them at random just to see something crazy with there. Any remaining thoughts on the top 30 as a whole, Ian? Anything you want to say just about this 30 compared to maybe previous ones or anything, or what you think about this top 30 just in general? Just some macro thoughts.
Yeah. So one guy that I didn't mention that, I didn't even put him in my top 30. And last year he down the stretch, he was very important for Kannapolis. Sam Antonacci, Nazis and Elijah are really big on him. They have him high 20s. Okay. Maybe even 17 for Elijah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I mean he's interesting. That's one that I completely forgot to mention on one of the guys that those two guys in particular are very big on him. And I like his profile. I just want to see him more. Yeah. So that's why I didn't put him on mine because I don't know. Like I said, I'm less militant about this. I kind of a little bit like to have a little bit more fun with it than other people do. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So, as far as the overall top 30 goes, this this list was so much more fun to make than the last like couple of years
I bet.
because there's people like I don't have to go searching and go, well, should this guy really be on there? No, not really. Like that's like the first couple of years that I started doing this, like
Yeah.
I had a couple of people say, oh, you should do like a top prospects list, and I'm like, yeah, no thanks. And so now, like,
I'll pass on that.
yeah, like there was just it was too easy to pick the top, and then like getting down into the bottom of it, you're just like why am I bothering? Like I know that this guy's
What's the point?
org filler at most, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, so I think that just the list is just so much overall better, and I feel like the strategy that they're using in drafting and the scouting is just so much better now. Not to mention with them picking new coaching and moving to the eye pitch and the traject. Like I don't know how many traject units they're going to have. I know that they're probably going to have one. Did they say they were going to have 3? I thought it was like Charlotte, Chicago, and Arizona. I think that's the 3 ones that they're having. I'm not 100% sure on that. But the eye pitch is good too. And having the ability to mimic pitchers and the exact movements of pitches and jump between them on pitches is huge. So I just think that things are so much better in the way of development and, how they're evaluating the talent before they get it.
Yeah, that's enormous. And it's you're right. It's got to feel good from the standpoint of making the list where you're not like, it's tough to stuff 30 into the list now, where before when you get to 18, you're like, what the fuck? Who's next?
18 is being very generous.
Ian, I've been asking everybody who's coming on here on the Au Jus this year, how many wins would make this a fun White Sox season for you? I'm putting you on the hot seat. How many wins would make it a fun season? You can say why too as well.
I think if they were to win 55 plus,
okay,
would be like I'd think that was like a pretty positive move upwards. Now if they can, and this sounds so stupid because I know that you listen to Venable and all them, they like they're talking about being a 500 team ish,
right?
Like they're saying, no, there's no reason that we can't do this. Martin Perez is like, yeah, we're going to the World Series. Like I don't believe any of that. But if they could win 63 and avoid losing 100 games, but also be the worst team in baseball, that would be ideal because I would still like the most percentage odds of winning the number 1 overall pick, but I don't want to lose 100 games. That would be my most fun season. That's how it shape out, I think. And
I love it.
Being able to get young guys.
And I love the thought process there too, because they're still in accumulation mode. And I think, let's be honest with ourselves, I think Chris Getz's mindset is you're kind of always in accumulation mode. There is no, this is it. You're always going to be looking for who's the next guy, trying to scoop these guys up. And so it's a more fun mindset. But I agree with you. Don't lose 100 and have the worst record. That would be great. That would be great. That would be absolutely perfect.
Be the best thing ever.
To move towards next year. I love it. All right. Ian, thanks for answering why Kyle Teal's the number 2 rated prospect. What it is about George Wilco, and should we be this excited about Shane Smith? Remember, we ain't trying to be around the show. We're just trying to understand. Is there anything you want to plug before you go?
At Daily White Sox on Twitter. You can find me there. FutureSox.net. Obviously, James and I are on every Sunday at 8 o'clock, usually when James doesn't have football meetings on Sunday nights. And then Elijah and Jeff are on during the week, and Danny and Jacob Thome. It's Thome, just so you know. They're on Wednesdays.
Important to say that. Yeah, good to see Danny back. Saw him at the live event at Rat Jeeves. It was good to see him. I popped in one of the live streams. It was good to see him on there again. So it's a good man.
Yeah, it's good to see him on the screen again. Glad to, like finally get him back into the, swing of things again. Obviously futuresox.net. You can find all the pieces coming from the guys in the Future Sox stuff. And all of our wonderful gentlemen that are putting out content. Find them on Twitter as well. That's about it.
Awesome, Ian. Thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
Sounds great. Care. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it. Take care, brother. That was Ian Eskridge. I love talking to Ian Eskridge about these prospects. Next week's guest is someone very personal to me. It's going to be Treasy E, and Treasy's coming on. He and I are going to try to handicap the 26-man roster. That's right. We're only going to have one more week of intel, and then he and I are going to try to build the 26-man. What we think they'll break and go to Chicago with. We'll probably make the regular lineup, not the opening day lineup, because I know as everyone's stipulating, they'll probably face Yusuke Kikuchi, and he's a lefty, and so you'd have to fuck the lineup up. We'll probably just try to do the normal lineup. So Treasy's joining me next week as we inch closer to the lid lifter on Thursday, March 27th. Thanks to Punky's Pizza and Pasta and all the 108 family is up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button comments. See you actually in a little while because we're going to do the 108 Tourney post-game show. Those will be running Monday through Thursday. The next 2 weeks, enjoy the tournament and go get some Punkies. Bye, and I love all of you.